Hi, everyone. I just wanted to take a minute to come on and just share some thoughts. Some of it from the book Produced from Pressure. And just in general, I'm thinking we are 2 weeks into the year 2024, right? A lot of the times we get to mid year and then we get to the second half of the year, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and we're like, oh my God, this year flew by. And I remember how the year started, but now that we're at the beginning of the year, I want to make sure that we are being intentional about our work in ourselves, our work with ourselves, um, so that we can continue to produce. Life is happening really, really fast, and sometimes it is hard to keep everything afloat. And when moments arise like that, it's really important that space is created so that you can take a step back and see where you are, feel what you're feeling, think about what you're thinking about, reconnect with yourself and your process, and then go forth. Take a pause when you need to and go forth. um, I want to share with you a little part from chapter 3 in my book. If you haven't already gotten it, I do encourage you to purchase a copy of the book and spend some time with it. It is definitely something that God inspired me inspired me through. And so I take very little credit for it, because I promise you the process in which I came to produce this book was out of very, very difficult experiences in my life. And um, I give all the credit for whatever this book will do to God. And so just thinking about healing and what healing is, what healing is and how do we step into that healing. A lot of people think healing is only for those who have been through very, very difficult circumstances in life, and you've been molested and abused and abandoned, and all of these very difficult things like trauma. When you think of trauma, you think about these very big, deep, hurtful, painful experiences that really, really take you off course in your life, right? But sometimes it's not always the big things. Sometimes it's little things, right? And so the Bible says, I wish above all things that you would prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers. And so it is our responsibility that we are healing in all areas of our lives, in the little things and definitely in the big things. Um, and so I was just looking up like the meaning of what is the definition of healing. It says it's a process of making or becoming sound or healthy again. It's a process of restoring to health. It's a process of getting well. It is the process in which a bad situation or painful emotion ends or improves. This process involves transformation, right? And so repetitively, you hear healing is a process. Healing is a process. Healing isn't a once and done kind of experience. It isn't, I've had an encounter, I am healed, I am good, let's move on. Healing is a process. I think every day there are things that we heal from. Every day, if we're walking right, and if we are intentionally thinking about the things that come up even in our days, the things that we hear, the way they impact us, the way they make us feel. Sometimes people say things that hurt us, they maybe trigger us in a certain way. And that sits somewhere inside of us. And those are the things we need to heal from. So I do believe healing is something that we engage with on a daily basis. And like I said before, it is a process, right? Um, and so where are you in your process of healing? Are you intentional about it? And is it something that you welcome in your day-to-day life? Is it something that you are open to in your day-to-day life? Is it something that you believe is needed in your day-to-day life? Because a lot of us, a lot of people wait until things are stacked. The little things stack up. And then we get to the end of the week and we are done because there's so many little experiences, so many words, so many things that were said and experiences that were had that piled up. And we don't address them. We don't process them. We don't put them where they belong. And so they sit. They sit in our souls. They sit in our souls. And for some people, years of experiences are sitting in our souls and weighing us down. Weighing us down. That was me for a very, very long time. And the truth is, I am still to this day unpacking. Every day. I am unpacking. And something comes, I don't create room for it to sit. I do not create room for it to sit. And if it's taking a long time, I'm calling in for help. No longer do I want to be burdened with things that are not meant to be a part of where I am going and where God is taking me. So healing is a process and something that we need to engage with on a daily basis. And so in chapter 3 of my book, page 54, it talks about how do we heal, right? And one of the things I said here is that I had to understand that what happened to me actually happened for me. It was not what I went through that would determine my purpose. It's what my purpose is that determined what I went through. It took me a little while to get there because I kept on getting stuck on what I went through and how could that be what leads to my purpose when I'm so hurt, so broken, so battered, right? So worn out from all of the things I've had to fight for so long. How could that lead me to purpose? But God is gracious and God is faithful and God is a healer. And when He touched my soul in such a way, and when He healed me and healed my perspective, and there was a transformation that took place, I was then able to hear and understand that it's because of my purpose that I went through the things that I went through. That's an entirely new perspective. And when you can grasp it from that point of view, things begin to change. It certainly did for me. Embracing this perspective was the beginning of my journey. I learned to make sense of my process when I began to understand my purpose. When we get anchored in who we are, what we're called to do, who we're called to, where we're going, where God has taken us, what we're put on this earth to do, what are we put on this earth to confront, what has God given us the authority over? When we understand that, then we understand purpose. The next point I made was I had to discover the power of vulnerability. It's impossible to go through the healing process without being vulnerable. And that's a very difficult thing to do for a lot of people. Believe it or not, the person who just wrote this book and bore a lot of the things of her life on the pages of this book was once someone who did not speak, who did not let people in, who was very ashamed of these experiences and wouldn't dare speak about it. But we cannot go through the healing process without being vulnerable. And so we have to discover the power of vulnerability. I needed to find my voice and discover the courage to tell my story. So as I spoke more of the experiences I had, the pain I felt, the more the heaviness was lifted bit by bit. The more the shame was lifted bit by bit. And the more empowered and strengthened I felt. So I wonder, what is it that you're holding on to that you have not yet uttered to someone else. And it doesn't have to be a recording that goes out to others. It could be in the safe space with someone that you trust. What is the burden that you're carrying? What is that experience that you're carrying? There's so many things that I have done that shame has kept me bound, because I'm like, oh my God, if anyone ever knew this about me, if anyone ever knew that I did this thing, no one would want to be around me. People would think, the worst of me. But even before what people thought about me, it's what I felt about myself. I felt ugly. I felt ashamed. I felt unworthy. And so I do believe that it is God's intention for us. God wants for us to release the shame of the things that we have experienced, the things that we have done, right? That shame is crippling. It is crippling. But I promise you that the minute you find the courage and you find the power in vulnerability to step out and to utter the words of those things, you literally feel a weight lifted off of you. And that's the first step. The first step is just finding the space, the courage to share it. Because once you release it out of your mouth, that thing that had you bound, that experience that had you bound and had you tied up, thinking that you're not worthy and no one is ever going to think anything good of you, that's lifted. You told the story, you uttered the experiences, you got it out of you. And a lot of the times people don't really care as much as you've cared holding on to it for as long as you did. That's the trick of the enemy, to make us believe that the things that we did, and sometimes when we've had certain experiences, or when we ourselves have made decisions that caused us to feel ashamed, we weren't where we needed to be. We weren't understanding our purpose. We probably didn't have the relationship that we have with God. So forgive yourself for the things that you've done, the things that you've said, that you've been ashamed of. Let them go. Let them go. Release it. There's a quote that I shared by Brene Brown, and it says, vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's our greatest measure of courage. Indeed, it is our greatest measure of courage. It takes a lot to be vulnerable, to open up and to say, this is who I am. This is what I've done. This is what I've been through. This is where I hurt. This is where I'm broken. This is me. That takes a lot of courage. And it takes a lot of strength. And when you open that up, you open yourself up to receive love. You open yourself up to receive support. You open yourself up to receive goodness, validation, forgiveness, right? All of those things. So consider the power of your vulnerability. And then the last thing I would say is, understand that authentic connections are important, that God ministers to us through others. Being surrounded by the right people in a safe environment brings meaning to our lives. We use the word authenticity so often, but for me, I had to learn the meaning of the term and embody it, become it in my own life. That required me to begin to be comfortable in my own skin, knowing my power, my beauty, my truth, my talents, and being satisfied in them all. And I'm going to pause there for a second because knowing my power, well, let's go back. Being comfortable in my own skin is something that took me most of my life to do. When you have been violated in your body, it's very difficult for you to be comfortable in your skin. You feel ugly, you feel dirty. And so to be able to step into a place where I am saying that I know my power, I know my beauty and my truth, my talents, and I am satisfied in it all. That is the work of God. I promise you, it is the work of God. There are times when sometimes trauma has a way of distorting your image and your view of yourself. I promise you, when I look in the mirror, I did not, past tense, I did not see myself as beautiful. And so people would compliment me. People will pay compliments to me. And I would say thank you and smile. But in my head, I would say, ew. I would say, ew. I'm like, what do they see? What do they see that is beautiful? Because I don't see it when I look in the mirror. I don't see beauty. I don't see the things that people say when they compliment me. But when God does a work in you, when he heals you and he restores you, and like we said in the definition earlier, restoring to health or to its original state, to become sound, that process that I went through, I can now stand and say, yes, I am beautiful because God created me as such. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I believe that I have talents. I believe that I am worthy. I believe that I am worthy of love. I believe that I am good. I am good. Those are the benefits of healing. The benefits of healing. And so no longer do I shy away when someone gives me a compliment. I can actually say thank you and mean it. Thank you. Thank you and mean it. Mean it, because we are created in the image of God. And so when we look at ourselves in the mirror, what we should see is the image of God looking back at us. Right? And so I believe that. So that's the benefit of healing. To be authentic means that I consistently show up in my fullness, and that is enough. So I began to accept, rehearse, and thank God for making me so wonderfully complex. And that's paraphrased from Psalm 139, verse 14. This may seem very simple, right? But to me, it was a huge accomplishment to recognize and honor the people that God placed in my life to support, encourage, and strengthen me. And it is those people that also helped to affirm the goodness in me. The more compliments I had from people that I trust in my circle, the more people said to me that you are good. The more people affirmed my talents and my strengths, the more I could actually step into it. So the mentors, the people that God has sent to your life to pour into you, sit in it, soak it in. Take it in, believe it. Believe what God says about you is true. And those things give you power. They give you power to be authentic, power to be true to who you are. Does it mean that you're perfect? No. It doesn't mean that you're perfect. And the truth is, I am unworthy, and I don't think all of my righteousness is like filthy rags before God. But God says that I am worthy. I am worthy of love. And I believe that. And when you believe these things about yourself, you show up differently. You occupy spaces differently. And so I just wanted to start having these conversations because I think it's really important. I'll close with this. I was talking to a friend earlier, and we were talking about a situation. And it had to do with how sometimes I said earlier, we don't see ourselves. We don't see how we show up for the world, how other people experience us. And so in our mind's eye, we are a certain way. We are the way we have always been, right? And even as we're embarking on this healing journey and we're coming into our strength and in our power and our truth and our authenticity and all of these different things, there's still things about us that are hidden to ourselves that everyone else sees. And so part of the intentionality is to listen to the feedback. Listen to what other people are saying around you. Because sometimes we get stuck in a certain way of being, even on this healing journey. We get stuck in a certain place. And we don't believe, and I said earlier that healing is something we engage in every day. So even as you've grown, as you've improved, as you've become better, there is still more. There is still more. And so when someone says to you, there's room for you to be even more open. I know one of the things for me is, while I give a lot of myself to others and I share and I'm vulnerable with my experiences and things that I've been through because I have a desire to empower other people, sometimes I don't always let people in. Circle is small. And there are times where sometimes it feels a little bit uncomfortable to let people into that space or even to receive love. I give it so freely because I know what it's like to not have it. And so when someone comes to you and says to you, why don't you let me take care of you in this way? Or why don't you let me pour into you this way as opposed to you always pouring? That's something to think about. That's something to think about. And so make room and make space every day to become the better version of yourself. Who I was yesterday was good. Who I am today was nice. Who I want to be tomorrow should be even better than I am today. And so I hope that you found this helpful. I hope that you are thinking about who you want to be in 2024, the things that you want to let go of, the things that you want to shed, the parts of yourself that you have held on to because they made you feel safe. Those are the parts of yourself that you want to let go of and make sure that you are continuing to become the best version of yourself every day. Be healed. Be set free. Be intentional. Be intentional. Be intentional about everything that you do. And every day, the goal is to be better than I was the day before. And it's little things. Celebrate the little things. Today, I did this and I celebrate it. And some days might not be as good as other days, but you know what? Acknowledge it. Acknowledge that today was a hard day and why it was a hard day. And you think it through, you process it out, you write it out, and then tomorrow you make a plan to do differently what you couldn't do today. Above all, be gracious with yourself, be gracious with the process. I do not want you to think that everything is perfect. It is not. Healing isn't glorious. The process of healing isn't a glorious one. I'm sitting here talking to you and you may think, oh, she looks like she has it all together. Some days it's really rough. Some days I'm fighting battles. Some days I don't want to get out of bed. But even in those days, I muster the strength and the courage to keep moving forward. The goal is not to get stuck. The goal is never to get stuck. And the goal is to find who those people are that are assigned to you that can pull you out in those moments. And always, always, always call on God, because He is your strength. He is the lover of your soul, and He will not let you fail. I love you, and I want to meet the best version of yourself sometime soon. Meet the best version of yourself. You meet the best version of yourself every day. Love on yourself, be gracious to yourself, and give God glory, give God thanks for all that He's already done and what He's going to do in your 2024. Be intentional. Bye.